Welcome back, artistic ladies and gentlemen, to part 2 of this week's Friday episode in this PTCGO series. Part 2 is gonna be the Fun Friday part, where we take a look at a deck list that I put together based around Glalie-EX. Check out part 1 on the top right of the screen. You can click it. That will take you to the Fun Friday part, where we take a look at a Glalie deck list that was sent in by one of you, the viewers. But right now, here, part 2 is time for a deck list that I put together. Glalie-EX, the 170 HP Pokemon with 2 attacks, Ice Breath for paralysis if we flip heads, and Instant Freeze that takes DCE, Water Energy, hits for 50 plus 100 more if we have the same amount of cards in our hand as our opponent. I am not including any Mega Glalies in this deck list. That is already a difference with the deck list that we used in part 1, which did include Mega Glalie. I am focusing solely on Glalie-EX, 3 copies of Glalie-EX, and I'm combining it with some other Pokemon. The main one being Seismitoad-EX with the Quaking Punch, hits for 30, item locks our opponent. One of the most well-known cards out there, I would say. Slap on a Muscle Band, I do run 1 copy of it, it hits for 50, or slap on a Fighting Spirit Belt, we are hitting for 40, and we give our Toad 220 hit points. We can also slap on the Muscle Band on Glalie-EX to hit for 170, a very nice number to knock out EXs, or put a Spirit Link, a Fighting Fury Belt rather, on Glalie-EX and give it some more HP, and at the same time we are hitting for 160. If we then somehow get a Empoleon on our bench with the Dignified Fighter ability, then we can increase our attack cost even more by 20. So if we have a Fighting Fury Belt attached to Glalie-EX plus a Empoleon on our bench, then we are hitting for 180 total with the Instant Freeze if we've got the same amount of cards in our hand as our opponent. And that is kind of the strategy here. If we are facing EX decks, we will want to try to get out Empoleon using the Archie's Ace in a Hole in this deck. 1 copy of Archie's Ace in a Hole. I've also got some draw support Pokemon, the Octillery, Abyssal Hands, draw up to 5 cards, and Shaymin for the early game draw support. Basically the same draw support as the deck list from Show from the first part, the Fan Friday list. I've also got the Regice, just like Show, with the Resistance Blizzard to kinda stall against EX decks. Can also hit for 90 with that Muscle Band, which is a 2-hit knockout on EXs, so that's always very nice. But contrary to Show, as I mentioned, I do not run Mega Glalie. I focus solely on getting the same amount of cards in my hand as my opponent and hit for a lot of damage with the Instant Freeze. And I've included the Toad as kind of a counter against Night March, and Toad is generally a very good general purpose attacker, can really clutch you some games by locking your opponent out of item cards. So I think I try to increase the versatility of this deck in certain matchups that way, try to get rid of its Night March weakness a little bit, even though this deck is still pretty weak to Night March. I've also got the Dunsparce, my boy Dunsparce right there, with the Glare attack, can stall for us, and the second bite, if we, for example, do not have the same amount of cards in our hand as our opponent, and we've got a Muscle Band on Glalie, we are only hitting for 70 damage, we can then come in with Dunsparce, hit for a second bite with a DCE, and try to get a knockout that way on our opponent's Pokemon. It's very nice that this Dunsparce takes DCE as well as the Toad, since we are running for DCE, because the Glalie also takes DCE, and then also in addition to that 6 Water Energy, just because Glalie requires Water Energy, and we could even use them on Empoleon, and obviously we're also going to use them on our Regice. So 10 energy total, I think that's a pretty good amount. That's what I settled on after a little bit of testing. 10 energy, could increase it a little bit more, but I never really had any trouble getting energy out of my deck. Let's have a look at the supporter cards then. I already mentioned the Archie's Ace in Hole, that's going to be used to get our Empoleon on our bench. And then a pretty standard line of some supporters, 1 Lysandre, 1 Xerosic as well, to help in a Night March matchup. And other matchups like Vespa Queen, 1 Sycamore combined with 2 N is kind of going to act like a card that we are going to use to fill up our hand to the same hand size as our opponent. Very useful to do so at the beginning of a match where we both have the same prizes, and if our opponent takes a lead, that's also still going to be useful for us, because we might be able to reduce our hand size to our opponent's hand size after we have used the N. 3 judges for the very same reason, getting the same hand size as our opponent. Better used in the late game than the N. Certainly if we are ahead in the prizes, then you want to judge your opponent. Can also be used to disrupt our opponent at the start of the game for sure, but then we only draw into 4 cards ourselves, so that might sometimes bring us in a bit of a tough spot. And I think that is already it for the supporter line, except for the Hex Maniac here. Hex Maniac is in this deck. It's a pretty, I would say, staple card in many decks right now in the format, just because there's so many abilities in the format, and you can use Hex Maniac to shut off all of those abilities. We could even use it to shut off our opponent's Octillery, keeping in mind that we are shutting off our own Octillery as well, so we need to use our Abyssal hand before we use the Hex Maniac. Then let's have a look at the item cards. There's 3 Ultra Balls to search out our Pokemon in combination with 4 Dive Balls, so lots of Pokemon search cards in my list here. This is especially important so that we can get out our Octillery as fast as possible, as well as our Glalie-Es. One switch, because I do not run any other means of switching Pokemon. I do not have a Manaphy, so we need at least some switching cards. 1 switch and 1 Escape Rope. Escape Rope is mainly going to be used if we run into Jolteon, Glaceon, things like that, decks like that. Escape Rope can be really useful to break their spell on our Pokemon, so that we can eventually start attacking them by escape roping out of their yeah, you could call it a lock. It's basically a lock preventing us from attacking the Jolteon or the Glaceon. And then 1 Super Rod to shuffle back Pokemon and energies in our deck. And then that only leaves the stadium. My stadium of choice is not the RFCs. Instead, I went for a Silent Lab approach, just because I don't really run Shaymin to set up. I only have that 1 copy, and most matches you won't actually be using it. It's more of a situational draw supporter. So we are going to try to put down our Silent Lab first turn, shut off our opponent's Shaymin, and try to slow him down that way, so that we can get some time here, take some time to power up our Glalie-EX. And that is it for the deck analysis. I think it's definitely time for us to go in the battles, find some opponents, see if we can pull off a win. Leave a like if you enjoy the premise of this deck. Click that thumbs up button, I much appreciate it. And subscribe to my channel for more competitive, silly and fun deck ideas. And I'll see you in the battles. Alright, Damian King 1997 is going to be our opponent with a fighting deck. Pure fighting, pure Garchomp most likely. Yeah, we lost the coin flip, so we are going to have to go second. Kinda want to start off with a Toad if this is Garchomp. Toad with a DCE. But we start off with a Remoraid, and I tell you what, I've been starting off with Remoraid for like 70 to 80% of the games during playtesting. It is quite ridiculous how many times I've started off with the Remoraid. My opponent starts off with the Machamp. I can get out a Dive Ball, Toad with my Dive Ball. Hopefully get a switch from the Trainers Mail. Cherno, wow, strange choice of a supporter card. And a Scorched Earth. There is a Landorus as well. And a pass of the turn, so not the best start for my opponents. We have a Regice, don't really fancy putting down that Regice. I'm going to get out a Toad, and I'm going to see if I can find a DCE. Let's get rid of the Empoleon, and let's also get rid of the Judge maybe. Let's get rid of the Judge. And see if we can find Shaymin, which is not in our deck. I should have looked before. Should have noticed that it's not in our deck. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get out the Glalie. Probably going to bench the Regice as well. You never know if my opponent plays Lucario. And then I'm going to take a look at this Trainer's Mail. Can we find a draw supporter? We do find a Judge. So let's get that Judge out in our hand. and judge ourselves down to 4 cards or up to 4 cards, and our opponent down to 4 cards. And there is an energy. Kinda need that energy. Kinda need to put it on the Remoraid to retreat it in the next turn. And we shall pass our turn. Not a very good turn from ourselves. So, slow start for both me and my opponent. A Korrina from my opponent is going to get out probably a Rare Candy and a Machamp. If I were to guess. A Meditite, so it's a Medicham deck. And I believe we already played against the Medicham deck in the previous part. The last game of the previous part. Part 1 of this Friday's episode. And gets out the Professor's Letter as well. Going to attach to that Medicham and maybe at some point retreat this Machamp into the Meditite that is going to evolve into the Medicham. He might retreat by attaching energies, paying the retreat cost, or he might just Korrina for a switch. I imagine he plays at least a switch or something like that in his deck. VS Seeker for the Korrina. There it is. And an energy attachment to the Landorus. He's going to try to get energies back from the discard pile, which he just discarded 1 energy to draw into some more cards, which is Scorched Earth. That is going to be his plan. And there is a Rare Candy. Wow. Pretty amazing there. Machamp in turn 2. We get an Escape Rope. So I basically wasted my turn. Wasted my energy attachment on this Remoraid. I don't want to actually play this Escape Rope, since I want to have my opponent have the Machamp stuck in the active spot for my opponent. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get out the Octillery, discard the Hex Maniac and the Glalie, and I'm going to retreat the Remoraid before I evolve into the Octillery and then draw into some more cards with my Octillery. I'm going to promote the Seismitoad-EX. Yeah, I'm going to promote the Seismitoad for now. See if we can stall a little bit with Seismitoad. And then we shall fill up our hand. Hopefully find a DCE or something like that. Would be pretty lucky because we still have a lot of cards in our deck. But there it is, 2 DCEs. Wow. That is pretty amazing. And then let's battle compress a Archie. That's not an Archie. That's not an Archie once again. An Archie. What else do we have? Xerosic. Let's compress the Xerosic as well. We've got 4 VS Seekers, so we might as well compress a Lysandre on top of that. And we should be good to go for now. Let's hit for the Quaking Punch for 30. It's not a whole lot of damage, but it's something. And my opponent cannot attack us anytime soon. The Machamp needs 3 energies to be able to attack. If my opponent switches into the Landorus, we are actually hitting for 60 damage on the Landorus and item locking our opponent. And so whatever he does, we are looking pretty good right now. He does bench a Lucario, so our Regice is gonna come in handy. I'm probably going to power up my Regice. The Regice can hit for a 1-hit KO on the Landorus, can hit for a 1-hit KO on the Meditite if we have a Muscle Band attached, and can hit for a 2-hit KO on the Lucario EX with a Muscle Band, and prevents damage from the Lucario as well. There is an Escape Rope from my opponent, so my opponent is going to Escape Rope us.
Oh, I remember very well. It was at this point in time that I started my attempt to beat the world record, being oblivious to item lock.
I'm going to promote the Octillery, and then I'm going to Escape Rope once again and promote my Toads once again while I power up the Regice. Unless my opponent decides to hang on to the Escape Rope, I'm not sure why he would do that. There is a Fighting Energy to Medicham, and no Escape Rope is going to let us take a stab at the Machamp in the active spot. Let's see. Let's attach to the Regice. Let's discard our own Escape Rope. Try to find some energies and some supporters. There is an N, excellent. A switch as well, even a Super Rod. We have some Pokemon in our discard pile and an energy. No need to use a Super Rod just yet. Would have loved to see a VS Seeker so we could Archie at some point. I think I will bench another Glalie And then I'm going to battle compress. Let's see. The Dunsparce battle compressor. We have a muscle band and fighting fairy belts right there. And I think that's all. Maybe this Ultra Ball. Don't really need another Ultra Ball here. So we'll get rid of those 3 cards, thin out our deck a bit, and then we shall Quaking Punch, item lock my opponent. Might switch into the Regice after another Quaking Punch and knock out this Machamp with my Regice, depending on what my opponent does. I'm thinking if he powers up this Medicham, he's going to use his Escape Rope into the Medicham, but he's actually powering up the Machamp, which can hit for 80. Oh, and he retreats the Machamp by paying the retreat cost. And there is a Sycamore, so he had a pretty great hand under the item lock. The Landorus can hit us for 20 damage, that's not a whole lot. So I'm not too scared of the Landorus for now. He can accelerate to the Lucario, but we have a counter against Lucario, and actually it's for 40 because of the Machamp. I kind of forgot there. Would love to get a VS Seeker for Hex Maniac, shut down that Machamp if I can, or a VS Seeker for Lysandre and Lysandre out that Machamp once more. And I think I was saying there that my opponent might use the Escape Rope before. I have to correct myself there. I was item locking him, so there was no way that my opponent could use the Escape Rope. And here we go. We are going to Lysandre the Machamp and keep Quaking Punching. So ignore my comment there. I realized right now there was no point to my comment. I might actually put an energy on the Glalie. So we have Glalie ready as an attacker as well. And could even power up the Seismitoad for a Grenade Hammer. Although I much prefer using the Glalie. So item lock it is. Could Abyssal Hand. I'm going to bench another Remoraid. You never know, my opponent might Lysandre out our Octillery and knock it out. Draw into 2 more cards with Abyssal Hand. There's a DCE for the next turn. Excellent stuff. We shall Quaking Punch once again. My opponent says fast. Not sure. I think I'm playing okay. Not the fastest, but not the slowest. But playing fast when you're recording is not... playing very fast when you're recording is not really possible. Because I need to explain my thoughts. And talking is always slower than thinking. So I always play slower when I'm recording. Attaches to the Medicham. Does he have an AZ to pick up the Machamp? That's the only way he can... get rid of this Machamp in the active spot, and he actually Mega Evolves into Mega Lucario with Rising Fist, discard an energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. That is very interesting card there. I'm kind of scared of that Mega Lucario. We get a Muscle Band for our Regice. I'm definitely going to put that on the Regice so we can deal with that Mega Lucario. And then I shall Quaking Punch one more time. In the next turn, that's going to be a knockout on the Machamp, but I think I will actually try to knock out the Machamp using my Glalie-EX. Switch into my Glalie and give my opponent a turn of item cards. My opponent could come in and knock out my Glalie with the Mega Lucario EX. Do I want to let this Toad get knocked out? Maybe, maybe not. Not too sure just yet. I definitely want to find another energy in the next turn. And I think I might end my opponent to find that energy. He's got a lot of cards in his hand, and there is a Wally. But it fails. He's trying to power up another Machamp, I think. But his Machoke might be prized. Silent Lab, let's counter that Stadium here. And then... that's Abyssal Hand for just 1 card. Can we get an energy? It is a Dive Ball, so I'm going to get out my Octillery with this Dive Ball, my other Octillery. Abyssal Hand one more time. And hopefully find an energy that way. I would love to find a Fighting Fury Belt as well. It is a VS Seeker. VS Seeker. Yeah, I'm going to go for an N here, and my opponent down a little bit. I'm not going to switch. There's a Fighting Fury belt. I'm going to put that on the Seismitoad-EX, and we even get the switch back. So hopefully the Seismitoad-EX stays alive. If my opponent has another strong energy for this Mega Lucario, he will knock it out. He will knock out our Seismitoad-EX. If not, our Seismitoad should stay alive. He could also find a Muscle Band or a Stadium to knock it out. I'm gonna take a gamble here, and I'm gonna power up my Regice. Hit for the knockout here on the Machamp. Take the first prize of the game against this fighting deck. And it's gonna be a Dive Ball. Not very useful for us. In the next turn, we'll promote our Regice. We'll switch into the Regice. There's the Mega Lucario. Or I actually might want to Lysandre out his Machamp. There's an energy, so that's not enough for the knockouts. He needs the Muscle Band. He needs the Fighting Stadium or the Muscle Band. He's hitting for 160 right now. And we have 180 HP. Hit points. Can he find what he needs? Well, he cannot use the Muscle Band again. I am forgetting. He is item locked. So he cannot put a Muscle Band on his Lucario. He can only find the Stadium or the Giovanni scheme. Wow. He actually... I did not see that coming. What a play that was. Giovanni scheme. Who the hell plays it anymore? Wow, that's really surprised me. I'm going to promote the Regice, and I'm going to Lysandre out that Machamp. That's the biggest threat to our Regice. So I'm going to Lysandre it out, knock it out in one hit. And then I'm going to hit at the Mega Lucario EX. Resistance Blizzard for the knockouts. Let's see what my opponent can do in response. Can he find another non-EX attacker? The Landorus is not really a very good non-EX attacker. We can easily deal with it. It needs some more energies on it before it can knock us out. Floatstone on the Landorus. I think he might try to power up the Landorus for a Sky Lariat. Hopefully we can find a VS Seeker by when that happens, by the time that happens. I'm not too happy on pulling that Shaymin from the prizes. It's a bit of a dead card in our hand. And he puts down another Machamp. 3 Machops. Rare candy into the Machamp. So we're going to get hit for 40 once again. 40. And there is another energy. He's going to retreat, I think, into the Lucario here. I don't see why he would not. He is water weak, so we one-hit KO. VS Seeker for a Sycamore. Alright, going to Sycamore himself down to 10 cards. I'll put a Bursting Balloon on the Machamp. Okay, well, I'm sure my opponent knew what he was doing there. And he's powering up the Machamp, so he's going to try to attack our Regice with the Machamp. I'm going to power up another Glalie. It's definitely not over here, definitely not. And I'm going to hit for the knockout on the Landorus. I think he should have kept that Bursting Balloon in his hand till the next turn. We get a Silent Lab. Might actually end myself down in the next turn. Down to 3 cards and fill up my hand with the Octillery. Try to find a VS Seeker that way for a Lysandre in the turn after that. There is energy on the Machamp and a Sycamore bringing himself up to 7 cards. Hopefully he uses some of those cards. There's a Muscle Band and a Counter Stadium. Excellent. He brings himself down to 4 cards. We should be able to actually bring ourselves down to the same amount of cards as my opponent and hit for a knockout with the Glalie here. We should be able to do that. And a pause of the turn. Can we do what is necessary to knock out this Machamp? We are hitting for 150, which is just enough. We just need to bring ourselves down to 2 cards here. So I'm going to counter the Stadium. I'm going to switch into the Glalie. And I'm going to end myself down to 3 cards, and hopefully I can use that last card that we get. But then I'm ending my opponent up to 4 cards. So actually I need to fill up my hand with the Octillery and then use 1 card and bring myself down to 4 cards. That's what I need to do. And I already have a card that I can use, which is the Fighting Fury belt. So I think this will work. We will had to make a little cut there. I kinda mumbled away there. I couldn't even hear myself. So I'm gonna try to say it again. I'm gonna put this Fighting Fury belt on the Glalie, and now we have 4 cards in our hand, same as my opponent, and we can hit for the knockout here on the Machamp. Our Glalie should be able to stay alive. We can retreat it in the next turn and start attacking with our Regice once again. And I think that's game then. I think our opponent doesn't have any reply to that. A Fighting Fury belt on the Mega Lucario EX, that doesn't do anything for it. Because it's not a basic Pokemon. And a Birch for my opponent. If he hits heads, he might actually deck himself out here before we do. But he just hit tails, draws into 4 cards. He's going to hit us for 160 damage. And there is his last strong energy on the Machamp. As well as a Trainer's Mail for... I'm not sure what he's looking for. Do we still have our Escape Rope? We do not have our Escape Rope anymore. So we have no switching cards. If we want to retreat this Glalie, we have to do it manually. Rising Fist for 160. Do I want to let this Glalie get knocked out? I probably have to, because my opponent discarded that energy using the Rising Fist attack. I'm going to Super Rod back some energies in my deck. So we've got 2 DCEs in the discard pile and only 1 energy in the discard pile. And I'm also going to, let's see, I'm going to Super Rod back maybe a Dunsparce and another Glalie. Dunsparce could actually come in and clutch a game for us. Knock out this Lucario after we've put some damage on it. Then let's take a look at the Trainer's Mail. We get a Dive Ball. I'm gonna leave that in my deck, and I'm going to judge my opponent as well as myself. See if we can find an energy, which we do. I could attack here with the Glalie, but that won't do much. Well, actually it would do 160, and I will attack. I'm going to let the Glalie not get knocked out, but attack at the same time. So I'm going to attach this DCE and hit for another instant freeze for 160 total in the next turn. That's a knockout with our Regice. So if our opponent tries to Lysandre out our Regice, then we still have the Glalie to attack with and get a knockout. We are hitting for 60 as the base with the Fighting Fury belt, so that's for sure a knockout on this Mega Lucario EX, unless my opponent uses a Pokemon Center Lady or something like that. And he counters the stadium one last time. We have one more stadium somewhere, but I think it might be priced, I'm not sure. Unless I do remember getting a stadium from the prizes at some point, so it might be in our deck. And he's down to 1 card. Yeah, I think this is game. He's going to deck himself out. He's not even going to be able to take enough prizes to win the game if he would be able to. There is a knockout on our Glalie, brings himself down to 2 prizes. We will respond with a knockout on the Lucario and take the game that way. Wow, what a long-lasting game, but what a fun game it definitely was. We saw a bit of everything in this game. We saw the Regice in action, we saw the Glalie in action, we saw the Toad in action. The only thing we didn't see was the Empoleon, so that's a little bit sad, but maybe we can see the Empoleon in action in next game, because I'm going to look for another game here. We dealt 820 damage versus 580 for my opponent. Regice MVP versus Mega Lucario EX. Let's see if we can find ourselves another opponent. Gabito or Gab1-To is going to be our next opponent with a Water, Psychic and a Darkness deck. Lots of different types, lots of mystery as to what my opponent is playing. My opponent is probably going to go first here. Hopefully he does not go first. One can dream, one can hope, but it is in vain here. My opponent did go first. We start off with a pretty decent hand. Glalie, Remoraid. We even have a Fighting Fury belt for our Glalie. Might try to look for a Shaymin. Oh, it is an Alakazam deck. Alakazam indeed. Haven't played against a single Alakazam deck so far, so I'm very excited to be playing against Alakazam. See how our Glalie deck fares against Alakazam. I have no idea what to expect. I kind of wish I was playing Rough Seas now, because Rough Seas is really good against Alakazam, and my opponent starts off with a Hoopa. Wow, what a bad start for my opponent. That is not what my opponent wants to see. This Hoopa has 170 hit points, so we can easily knock it out. Town map, there is a Espeon in the prizes, and a Remoraid as well. It looks like my opponent is playing Octillery as well. First, a Trainer's Mail from my opponent is going to try to look for something, but it failed. Maybe I was trying to look for an Ultra Ball for another Hoopa. Oh, and an N. Oh no, we had such a nice hand there. Why you gotta do that, bro? We had such a nice hand. And of course we get End into a terrible hand. There is an Alakazam with the Kinesis and the Suppression. Yeah, I really wish I played Rough Seas right now. Well, at least we have the Silent Lab to shut down the Kinesis. If my opponent doesn't have a Dimension Valley in play. Hopefully he benches a Dimension Valley right now so we can counter it at some point. And he's going to manually retreat the Hoopa. Passes a turn. I'm going to try to paralyze the Hoopa. Let's put a Fighting Fury Belt on that Glalie. I'm going to keep this Dive Ball in hand. Just so we might be able to in the next turn knock out this Hoopa with our instant freeze, and I can match my opponent's hand size. For now we will just hit for the Ice Breath, and it is a hit, so even if my opponent attaches an energy in the next turn, he will not be able to retreat this Hoopa. There is a Remoraid for an Octillery and an Alakazam, so my opponent is reducing his hand size quite a bit here. As well as a Spirit Link. He's down to 2 cards. Can we bring our hand size down to 2 cards? I believe we can. Oh, and even a VS Seeker for another N. No, 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 no. Why you gotta do that? I'm not sure why he attached that Spirit Link to the Alakazam that he just put down. He should have attached it to the Alakazam that he already put down in the previous turn. I kind of want to play my Toad as well, so my opponent cannot use the Spirit Links. But he's already got a Spirit Link on that Alakazam, and there is the end of the turn. We will get the, well, we actually won't get the knockout. We don't have a Empoleon in the discard pile, nor do we have a Muscle Band on this Glalie-EX. That's a little bit sad. Maybe we could get a Empoleon in the discard pile here and pull off the Archie. I'm going to try to do that. So I'm going to Battle Compress. Where is our Empoleon? There is the Empoleon Xerosic. I want to have access to a Xerosic. 4 VS Seekers. Might as well discard the Hex Maniac. Shut off my opponent's abilities if you can find the Hex Maniac. Then I want to get an Ultra Ball here. There is the Ultra Ball. That's what I needed. Ultra Ball. Get rid of the... Oh man, this is gonna work out perfectly. I'm gonna get rid of the Shaymin and the Escape Rope. And I'm going to get out maybe a Seismitoad. Maybe another Glalie. I'm going to get out Regice actually. Let's get out Regice. Let's bench the Dunsparce. And then we shall... Oh boy, oh my goodness, this is perfect. We shall... get the Empoleon out with the Archie and hit for the knockout on this Hoopa, because we have 5 cards in our hand and my opponent has 5 cards too. I would love to bench this Silent Lab, and I think I actually can do that. I can fill up my hand with Octillery, so I'm gonna bench this Silent Lab so my opponent cannot use the Kinesis in the next turn. Let's first get out the Octillery, see if we can find it. It should be in our deck. Let's get rid of the Remoraid and the Water Energy. There is the Octillery, so we can fill up our hands. This is working out just great here. Just great. Let's put down the Silent Lab and then evolve into our Octillery and fill up our hands. 2 5 cards. Wow, I'm so excited. Oh my goodness, it's an okay hand, not the best, and here is the knockout with the instant freeze for 180 damage. Amazing stuff with Glalie here, even if we lose this game. Oh my goodness, this was one for the books. That turn, that was such a fabulous turn. That's a Karptastic turn, my ladies and gentlemen. That's a Karptastic turn right there. And there is the Alakazam with the Spirit Link. And 160 hit points, which is an easy knockout for us. Can my opponent find the Mega Alakazam? I'm going to start powering up the Regice in the next turn. Definitely going to start powering that up. That's really Kinesis. When you play Mega Alakazam from your hand to evolve this Pokemon, before it evolves, you may put 2 damage counters on your opponent's active Pokemon and 3 damage counters on one of your opponent's benched Pokemon. So he's probably going to put that on our Regice then. He still needs to find a counter stadium, because if he evolves right now, it's not going to do much for him. And he's actually powering up the Sigilyph. That's interesting. For the Reflective Shield. Alright. He's going to try to put 5 damage counters on our Glalie. Huh. What should we do here? What should we do? Do we go for the knockouts? I kind of think that we should. Maybe I should get out another Glalie and power up another Glalie. So let's get a Glalie going. And do we have a Judge in the discard pile? I don't think we have. I don't think we have a Judge in the discard pile. But we have a Xerosic that we can use to get rid of the Spirit Link from our opponents. Do I want to use that Xerosic and get rid of that Spirit Link? We can't knock out the Sigilyph with our Glalie at this point, which is a little bit frustrating. So we actually need to go for a Judge if we want to do that. Let's take a look at the Trainers Mail. There is no Judge there, but I can battle compress a Judge and get a Judge in my hand with the VS Seeker. Do I want to do that though? Do I want to do that? I don't know. I don't know what I want to do here, because my opponent doesn't seem to have a very good hand. I'm gonna start attaching to the Regice, and I'm going to discard a Judge my opponent. Or I could actually discard a Lysandre and Lysandre out the... Yeah, that's what we are going to do. We are going to discard the Lysandre. I cannot believe how I did not think of that before. Lysandre out the Alakazam with the Spirit Link on it. So Lysandre it is, and I'm going to discard a Judge as well for good measures. And we should be able to bring our hand size down to 3 cards here. Let's fail the Dive Ball. And then let's Lysandre out the Alakazam and hit for the knockout. Oh, another fantastic turn. I nearly missed out on using the Lysandre. I cannot believe that. Instant freeze for the knockout for 180 on that Alakazam. My opponent is in a really bad spot here. We can take this game in the next turn. All we need is a Lysandre. We don't have it in our hands, but we can burn some cards. Can definitely burn some cards to try to find a Lysandre. With our Octillery or a VS Seeker for a Lysandre. That's what I meant to say. And there it is. There is the victory. Wow. That was just insane. That was an insane turn of events, that one. That match. Oh my goodness. I don't think I will see a match like that with this deck anytime soon again. Oh, I'm gonna take a break here. I'm gonna cool myself down and see if I'm probably gonna work on some other deck, maybe test a little bit with Snorlax just to take a little break. I'm fully pumped up here from this match. Leave a like if you are pumped up as well, and subscribe to my channel for more matches like this, hopefully. I hope you have a truly Karptastic day, and I will see you next time.
Karp, 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 Karp. Karp, 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 Karp.